again. As promised in my last video, where I talked more generally about stars and storytelling, I'm now back with the first story about a constellation. I had several candidates for this, but I decided to start with my favorite constellation, which is Orion. The reason why it's my favorite is not that the stories about Orion are my favorite stories. Quite the opposite, to be honest. Orion is not a very nice character in the stories. The reason is rather that the constellation itself is my favorite. It's not until the darkest time of year that Orion is visible to us here in Finland. And I associate Orion with coming home for the Christmas holidays to visit my parents while I lived in bigger towns and further away from them. One thing I always did was to look up at the sky and see if I could spot Orion and the Big Dipper. When I saw Orion, I knew it was Christmas. And I still look for Orion as soon as we reach December. I like the hourglass shape of the constellation and the 3 stars that form the belt in the middle. And when I learned more about stargazing, I found more reasons to love Orion, and I will get back to that after the story. As with all oral traditions, there are various stories and versions of the stories about Orion, and some of them are even conflicting. So I will pick out a few versions and perhaps get back to other versions some other time. First of all, some see Orion as a warrior with a club in his right hand and a shield in his left hand. Other people see Orion as a hunter with a club or a sling in his right hand and a bow in his left hand. I'm going to tell you a story about Orion the Hunter, as it is told in Greek mythology. According to the tales, Orion was the son of the sea god Poseidon and a mortal woman Euryale, daughter of King Minos of Crete. He was a demigod, tall and strong, a real giant, who could walk between the Greek islands without getting his hair wet. It is also said that he had inherited an ability to walk on water from his father Poseidon. Because of this ability, he could easily go or hunt wherever he wanted. And on the island of Crete, he met Artemis, the goddess of hunting, and was invited to hunt with her. Orion was an excellent hunter, but he was also a very handsome man, and the gods and goddesses of Olympus are known for having a soft spot for good-looking humans and demigods. There are 2 main stories about Orion's death and the reason why he ended up as a constellation in the sky. In one story, he was punished for killing animals for fun. Orion considered himself the greatest, strongest and best hunter, and as such he feared no animal, no matter how dangerous it was. He even boasted that he could kill all the animals in the world if he wanted to. When the earth goddess Gaia heard this, she was very angry and sent out a scorpion, which successfully killed Orion by stinging him in the heel. When Artemis heard the news, she was so saddened that she asked Zeus, the king of the gods, to put up her hunting companion in the sky. Zeus agreed and turned Orion into a constellation, along with a scorpion that killed him. But since they were enemies, Zeus placed them on opposite sides of the sky, so that when one of them rises over the horizon, the other one sinks below, and vice versa. In another story, Apollo, the twin brother of Artemis, noticed that his sister had fallen for the good-looking hunter and didn't like it at all, partly because the distraction made her neglect her duties as a goddess. So he made up a plan for how to get rid of Orion. One day, when Orion was out swimming far away from the shore, Apollo challenged his sister to hit a speck in the sea with an arrow. This speck was in reality the head of Orion, but Artemis couldn't see that because of the distance. To prove her skill with bow and arrow, Artemis sent off a single arrow that killed the swimming Orion. When she realized what she had done, Artemis made Orion into a constellation in the sky, together with his two hunting dogs, Sirius and Procyon, which are the constellations known as Canis Major and Canis Minor. So that was some of the stories about Orion, the great huntsman of the sky. If you're new to stargazing, Orion is a great place to start observing the night sky. Firstly, because this constellation is very easy to find, and secondly, because it contains some very exciting objects. Most people are familiar with the 3 stars in a row that form the belt of Orion. These 3 stars are often called the 3 wise men, the 3 kings, or the 3 sisters. The names of the individual stars are Olnitak, Olnilam, and Mintaka. If you move your gaze downwards from the belt, you will see another line of stars and an area that looks bright but a little fuzzy. This is often referred to as the sword of Orion. What you're looking at here is something very exciting. It's one of the few nebulae that are visible without a telescope. If you have good eyesight, you can see it with the naked eye, otherwise a pair of ordinary binoculars is all you need. Since I've already made a short video where I explain what a nebula is, I'm not going into any details here, but in short, a nebula is a cloud of dust and gas in which stars are formed if the conditions are right. In the Orion Nebula, the conditions are right, and when you look at it, you are watching the birth of stars in real time. Isn't that mind-blowing? At least I think so. The Orion Nebula isn't the only interesting object in this constellation, though. If you look closely at 2 of the stars that form the opposite corners of the hourglass, you will notice that the one to the upper left is leaning towards red, whereas the star to the lower right is leaning towards blue. This is because stars have different colors. It may seem like they're all white when you take a casual look at the sky, but the color of a star is in fact determined by the temperature of the star in question. The star to the lower right is named Rigel, and the reason it looks bluish is that it is a super hot supergiant. When it comes to stars, the bluer a star, the hotter its temperature, and the cooler the temperature, the redder the color. The star to the upper left is called Betelgeuse, and its temperature is much lower than Rigel's, which is why it looks more reddish. Our own sun is of course also a star, and it is a yellow star, with a temperature somewhere in between. Which is lucky for us, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. If it were hotter, we'd be toast, and if it were cooler, we'd be frozen. Before I finish, I want to tell you one more thing about Betelgeuse, which is one of the most interesting stars in the sky at the moment. Betelgeuse is a red supergiant that is getting near the end of its life cycle. Stars are not only born, but they also die when they run out of fuel. And when that happens, in the case of Betelgeuse, there will be a show to remember. The star could namely at any time now explode into a supernova, So astronomers all over the world are keeping a keen eye on the star to see how things are developing. When it goes supernova, the light will be so bright that the star can be observed during daytime here on Earth. Unfortunately for you and me though, any time now in a star's perspective means within the next 100,000 years or so. So the risk is pretty big that we won't be around to see when it happens. Oh. Okay, that's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed my stories about Orion, and if so, please give the video a thumbs up or leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be back soon with a new story, a new constellation, and new fun facts about space. So make sure to subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss it. And bye for now.